let's take advantage of that and do all things kindness. There it is, right there. Today we have a speaker for you. Yujuan, right? I got it wrong. Eugen. I said it wrong again. I'm so bad.
It's okay.
Eugen is here to chat with us about his business. And you say you don't have any slides?
I don't have any slides.
So we don't have to give you the control of the screen?
Nope, I'm just going to talk.
That's awesome. You guys ready for an awesome presentation?
Yeah.
Sweet. Let's go, man. You've got the stage, sir.
Awesome. So, hello, everybody. Thank you for showing up to my presentation. My name is Eugen Tang. I currently run a company called Meme Tech that hosts a 3-month kind of boot camp kind of thing that just helps you build out your technical product and your technical vision. Let me give you a little bit of my backstory, and so you can know like how I got here. So initially, out of college, I wanted to do machine learning, and I applied to a bunch of PhD programs. I didn't get in. And then I went to Amazon, where I worked as a software engineer for a while. After a time at Amazon, I felt that I wasn't really fulfilled. And then I was like, I don't feel too connected to my work. I want to be able to actually see the impact that I make. I want to be able to actually work directly with people and stuff. And out of that, I decided I was going to quit and start my own startup. And I launched an app. It was called Am I Bormal, which is basically, and it was an app that basically took a huge survey and showed you all of the answers that everyone else chose, and the percentage they chose them. And my goal with this app, knowing absolutely nothing about business, coming from a totally engineering background, I was like, if I build a good app, people are going to use it and it's going to go viral. And that didn't happen. But I did spend a lot of time. I was like, okay, I recruited some marketing interns. I recruited some people to help me with the graphic design. I had another engineer come and help me build the product a little bit. And then we were just, so we launched, and I spent a long time just trying to get it off the ground. I went on social media. I learned a lot about social media marketing. I learned a lot about how to talk with people who use your app and stuff. I enrolled in, and along this process, and this is kind of getting into how I actually came up with Tech Founder Connect. Along this process, I enrolled in some incubators and some accelerators. And that's where I met Caleb, actually, at FI, which was one of the accelerators that I enrolled in, or the pre-accelerators that I enrolled in. And in these accelerators and incubators, I kind of noticed a few things. Number one, that there were not a lot of technical people in here. So pretty much everyone I met came from some sort of business, or a couple of people came from a medical background, but pretty much everyone came from a business background. So not a lot of access to technical talent. The other thing that I noticed was that there wasn't much of a social aspect to it. So when I was in FI, and then the other one I joined was Emerge, and the other one that I was, I didn't go to it, but I almost went to it, was New Chip. And there's another one called Open Water. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but they do something similar to what I do. But I kind of went through these, and I noticed that one of the other things is there's just not a lot of socialization. You don't get to really know the people that you're in your cohort too much. Caleb and I were actually in the same group, so we did get to chat. But outside of that, we didn't really get to know the rest of the cohort. And most of what was done in the process was this pitching process, where they're just all right, we're just going to sell this product. We're just going to pitch this product and sell it and sell it and sell it. And I very obviously recognize that sales is a very big process, a very important process to startups. That was the big reason why I failed with Bormal, because I was unable to really articulate a way to sell it or anything like that. So along the way, I also noticed that not only do people not really understand, not only do people not have access to technical resources or the investment resources or their fellow entrepreneurs, but one of the things that when I started Tech Founder Connect, I noticed is that a lot of people would ask me about the software development process. And a lot of people kind of have this idea, I guess, that software development or building out your app, people want to build out an app. That's the big zeitgeist. Everyone's I'm starting a startup. I'm going to build an app. I mean, I was there. So a lot of people have this idea where they're what goes into building an app? Well, I'm going to code it, right? All you have to do is be able to code the app. It turns out that's not true at all. And what I actually, so what I'm doing is I'm applying what I learned at Amazon into building a scalable application, right? You can build any app with some sort of no code platform or whatever and have like, a few hundred people use it and it'll be great, it'll be fine. But in order to build an application that actually scales, you have to design it to scale. And so I took the process that I learned at Amazon, which I kind of sum up into 3Ds, which is discover, design, deliver. And I came and I was like, okay, I think that I have access to a bunch of people who like to do programming, who like to build. And I talked with some of my friends. They're like, yeah, I would love to like get connected with a startup and do some building for them, get some equity or get a little bit of payment or something like that. And I was like, okay, so I can connect these people. I can connect these people who want to build products, and I can connect these people who are entrepreneurs and don't have access to people who want to build products. And so that's kind of how I came up with the idea of Tech Founder Connect. I come in for 3 months, I help, and I do basically all of like the general like business stuff. I mean, just make sure that, and then I come up with the technical vision. I make sure the founder does all the business stuff. I'm actually working with Leif right now. So the founder comes in, they do all their business stuff, they do the customer interviews, they make sure that they talk to me about what they want to build in their product, and I'm like, okay, so this is what you want to build in your product, this is what you want your user to do. It sounds like here's the features that you need, and then let's talk about like what features are my feature interpretations correct, and then like what features do you actually need. And so in this 3-month process, I kind of go over the first two parts of software development, which is discover, design, and I help build out a scalable application with like what they call a microservice architecture. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing. I think that was about 5 to 6 minutes. And what I need help with and what I'm looking for is I don't really know where to find I don't know like where to advertise, where do I do my marketing and stuff, right? Like I don't know, like, do I post on Instagram? It doesn't seem like Instagram's the right choice. Like Facebook, I don't know if Facebook's really like, I'm not on Facebook. Um, so I don't know anything about that. I know TikTok's the wrong choice, but all I know is social media marketing. So I don't know anything about other marketing stuff. So if you guys have any comments on that, I would love to hear that, and I would love to get your help on that. Oh, thank you.
You can hear my clapping now.
Yeah, clap, clap, clap. We were all silent. It's like silent movie.
Silent movies.
Yes, it's like a silent movie. Well, that was excellent. I got the whole picture without even seeing any slides. It's a really well spoken 5-minute elevator pitch. That was awesome. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank
So
you.
a lot of you who've been here before may have realized that the host today, me, forgot to go through the slideshow. But luckily, all of you have been. I know. Look at Julie. No, but the good news is you are all people who've been here before. So my mistake worked out. Luck of the draw. Luck of the draw.
It's luck of the draw.
But Eugen did a great job. So to ask questions, you can raise your hand. There's a couple ways to do that. One is to go down to, if you've got the updated, you hit the reactions button at the very bottom, and that'll give you the opportunity. The other one was when you clicked on your participants, it allows you to add that in there. So lots of hands are up, and they come in the perfect order. So I'm going to start that off by saying the first to ask a question today is Victor.
Hello, good job, Eugen.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's cool to hear your story and you're going and finding what does fulfill you, and that's what obviously always uh, inspires me as well. So I'll say like in terms of your ask, like marketing places to market, I think like um, TikTok might not be the wrong choice just because there are a lot of if I don't know, I've been using it, but also for educational purposes as well. Have honestly learned so much on the platform just because there's just so many people actually teaching and educating. And so like having being that platform where you can actually show your expertise to say that like I know about like some aspect that you would be consulting someone with, like maybe even as you're helping with Leif, one of his questions you can answer in a TikTok video for like 60 seconds, right? Like that's something that will obviously attract people who who might need that. And so like the algorithm is really, really good in terms of knowing what people need or want before they do. So that's kind of that's part of it. But yeah, just making quick little videos that could be very educational for people. It's a really good marketplace.
Okay, cool.
Just wanna
Thanks. I'm
throw
gonna write
out
that down
there.
actually. Little educational videos.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Yeah, and that's the coolest part of social media is basically like if you can gather common questions or common issues that people already have, you just use your social media then to make a content piece that answers that one question, right? And then just start from there. That's what content creation is, and really just sharing it on whatever platform that you resonate with and like using. That's the most important part. Just using one that you want to, not necessarily the one that like, you know, is going to be the best, quote unquote, but just one that you like to use. That's
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that feedback, Victor. Okay, that makes sense.
That's very cool, Victor. I'd never thought about using TikTok in that way.
Yeah, me neither.
And there's a great thing about having that small bit of education, like you said. It's a freemium model. You're giving a little bit of information for free so that people now trust you and want to come and get the full thing. That's a great idea. Would not have gone there myself. Jolene, you are up.
Okay, I totally agree with Victor. I only do educational videos, and I have 10,000 followers within like the last 2 months. And let me tell you, my Instagram, my Facebook is not moving that quickly at all. And
Wow.
so totally agree with
on
that.
TikTok.
On TikTok.
Oh, okay.
And I'm
Oh,
getting
I'm
leads
really
from it,
surprised.
like tons of leads, which is like I know everybody's like that TikTok, and you're like, no, but for real, like,
Oh.
and I do think that Clubhouse is another place where I think it's a time suck a little bit, but I do think that if you can get into the right conversations, I think that you can connect with people who are doing that. I'm actually your target audience right now because my developer is transitioning to a full-time position with Facebook. And so I need
cool.
a developer. And so my question would be is, you talked about these developers, maybe pairing with companies to get equity. And I'm curious if most of your developers are looking for equity or if they're just looking for their next kind of contract gig, and what you're seeing from the development side of things. Like, what are their expectations?
Sure. Right. Okay. So I initially started Tech Founder Connect with the idea of connecting people with like kind of like more seniors or like recent graduates. But recently I've kind of shifted away from that because so I actually did pair up. So one guy I'm working with, his name is Peter. He's working on this application that basically goes to your Zoom classes for you. He's a college student. He doesn't want to go to his 8 a.m. So he just made this application. He was like, I'm just going to make it. And so he's selling that. But I kind of paired him up with a couple of college students. And I realized that actually a lot of that is a lot of me doing handholding, where I go in and I come in and I do troubleshooting and all of this stuff. And I'm kind of like, I would rather have someone who has like some industry experience. And so I asked a bunch of my friends who are in the industry, and I was like, okay, like let's say that I was like, first of all, I was like, are any of you guys interested in working with startups either for equity or making some cash? And they were like, yeah, we have time, we want to hone our skills. So I talked to this one guy. He's working on this app called Cohort with me. Caleb, if you remember, that was also from FI. So I'm working with this guy he's working at Microsoft right now. And he was basically like, well, I want to work on a side project because I want to be able to exercise my front-end development skills. So a lot of the people that I have been talking to about this, the developers I've been talking to about this are people who would like to have a chance to exercise their development skills outside of work. And they're not particularly looking for any specific equity or any specific payment, but they would, obviously everyone likes to get paid for their work. So they are just like, I was actually talking to one of my friends here, and I was like, hey man, this is what I've been thinking about. This is kind of what I want to build. Like, are you interested? And he was like, yeah, I would love to get like a little bit of equity, like, like 2 or 3% equity in some company for like, a few months of work and building out their stuff and maybe like, continue with them later. And so I think most of them are just looking for like an opportunity to work on their skills, and B, some level of compensation for it. It's like, I don't think anyone's like, no one that I've talked to is like looking for like a full-time, like offer a full-time job. They just want to be able to have like some sort of side project that they're doing that brings them more like fulfillment, right? So I was actually talking to my friend who I was working on Cohort with, and he's like, look, man, big tech is really losing me. I don't feel connected to my job. I want to go do something that gives me fulfillment, and I hope that this company works out so that I have a reason to quit my job and work on this full time. And I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So that's what I've mostly been hearing from developers, Jolene.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah.
That's very cool stuff. Getting into the minds of the developers. Leif, you are next, sir. Yeah.
Hi, Eugene. Liked your
Hello.
presentation, by the way. I feel like we've had very interesting presentations lately. And I know I've been learning, by the way, the word interesting is not a good word. So we need to stop using that word. But because it's just like, oh, interesting. It's like, that's an idea. Yeah. So we've had different presentations recently, like a 2-slide, now no slide. So next week there'll be there's no meeting.
There's going to be negative slides next week.
Yeah, for sure.
The audience
So
needs to
I
make
like
slides.
I like that vibe. My question for you is: so you're trying to figure out how to market. Who is your customer? Is it more the tech people, or is it more the founders? Which one's the harder group to find? And tell me your thoughts about there.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question, actually. So this is, I mean, obviously, I'm building some sort of like two-sided marketplace here, which is always hard to build, right? And I started with access to the technical side. So that was what I had access to first. I think that finding founders is a little more hard because I am more already entrenched or connected to the technical community. So I have just like a lot of friends who are in tech or who are doing software and stuff like that. So that's not really too challenging. I don't understand too much about entrepreneurship, and I don't really know where to find most entrepreneurs, right? So this is one community where I'm like, oh, here's some entrepreneurs. And then like other than accelerators and incubators, I'm like, I don't really know like where to find these people. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know that much about where people are in entrepreneurship. So
yeah. So that helps answer the question. So in that regard, I think what you kind of are touched on already a little bit, I believe, but basically being the subject matter expert, like if you go up in front of people that are entrepreneurs and say, I am a person who can make your stuff happen and architect it, and I know how that's done, like that's your marketing, like for the most part, because you don't need a ton of clients. You don't need 1,000 clients. You need probably like a dozen or so per quarter or 2 quarter, whatever that looks like. So talking and saying, I'm subject matter expert, and here's like, I think you have an MVP, how to do an MVP type thing.
yeah, I just wrote a book.
Yeah. Well, wow. That's cool. Tell us more about that. That's neat.
Yeah, I actually just wrote a book on how, like an easy way to build apps. And it's basically what I talk about in the book is the whole process, discover, design, deliver. And I mean, like, it's not like, huh?
The D's, yes.
Yes, the 3Ds. And it's not actually published yet. I like literally wrote the first draft last week, and I was like talking to some of my like software engineering friends, and I was like, hey guys, I wrote this book. Can you guys give it a read over? Let me know what you think. Is it helpful? And stuff like that. But yeah, I just wrote, I've like, hopefully like I can put the book out. Basically it's just, it consists of like a bunch of questions that I answer in like my process. That's like, okay, so in Discover, right? Gather requirements, check the existing software, build some sort of feature or function progression. And then I talk about like, okay, what do I ask myself when I do gather requirements, right? Like, what do we want to build? What's the user experience? What is it? What is our end goal with this, kind of things like that. And then in there, I write like a little bit of like, here's a story of, someone who didn't follow this process. And here's a story of, why you should follow this process. And then here's some questions that you can answer yourself. And I'll actually send you this later, Leif, since we're working together anyway. So I'll send you this later so you can have a look at it. But yeah, so it's like, here's some questions that you can ask yourself along the way. And it's basically like, it's sums up basically what I do for the first 3 months. And it just sums all of it up, all the questions that you should ask yourself, all the questions you should answer. And yeah, so that's what that book is about.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate your answering.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your question.
That is so cool. I will come back to that later. There's 3 people who've got questions in before me, but I love what you just talked about. Nick, it's your shot.
Thanks. First off, great presentation.
Thank you.
Learn a little bit more about you. And some of my questions were sort of answered in the previous stuff, so that's good. But it seems like what you're creating is basically sort of part matchmaker, part consultancy sort of thing, like sort of the recruiting thing like that, right? Which means it's a lot of kind of one-to-one sort of stuff. I think, like mentioned, you know, a dozen clients a quarter or something is probably realistic. You know, I don't see this as a scale in the app tech way of scaling, you know. So that being the case, what's sort of your selling point that you want to bring out of your you know, because this, you're not the only person doing this sort of thing. You know, lots of people see the opportunity in like consulting to the tech, you know, startups, that sort of thing. So yeah, what are sort of the selling points or like the differentiators that you feel that you've got, and how do you think you can put those in front of you know, the entrepreneur people, not non-technical people?
Okay, that's a really good question. Selling points and differentiators. I think that particularly, at least so from what I've seen, there's 2 kinds of businesses that help you build your application or help you get started as like a founder. And one of those is the accelerators that I was talking about, and the other one that I've seen is software agencies, like software development agencies.
Right.
And so accelerators, there is one accelerator that will actually help you build your application. They take 5%, and it's a 12-week program, and they give you a team of college students, some of which are program managers, some of which are software developers, and they say that, you know, they're going to come in and they're going to build your application. So I've actually talked with someone who's gone through this accelerator, and their experience was not great. So I was like, okay, what was not great about it? What was the problem? You know, what exactly what about it did you not like? So she said that it took them 15 weeks instead of 12, so it was a little bit over. And then that working with the college students is a little bit difficult, mainly because they are college students and they don't have the industry experience. And so so that was actually part of the reason why I was like, oh, like I see, I shouldn't connect people with college students. I should connect people with people who already have industry experience. And so I think that's one of the differentiators, is that it's like mostly people you're going to be working with are not going to be college students, but rather people who are actually working in the industry. Now, the downside of that is that they don't have 40 hours a week to be giving, you know, your project. They have like 5 to 10. So that's the downside of that. But you know, I think that is like a, you know, one differentiator from what I've seen with the VCs. And then the other thing is in software development agencies, there's a couple categories I would split that into as well. There's the ones that are actually based in North America, and then there's the ones that are based abroad. And most of the times there's the pros and the cons of each, right? So the pros and cons of going abroad is, your pros is that it's cheap. Your cons is you're going to be working with someone who A, doesn't speak your language, B, isn't in your time zone, and C, you know, isn't always going to be directly connected with you. You're going to be usually, at least what I've seen is that you kind of talk with the manager kind of person. And then the pros and cons of having a team directly here, like a local team or like just some team somewhere in Americas, is that time zone. Great, you get time zone, native English speakers. The cons is, of course, that it's super expensive. So what I wanted to do was kind of get something that's in the middle. It's like I want it to be something that's like not like super expensive, not like $80,000 to $100,000. Maybe it'll only cost you like my goal, and like what I was talking about with some of my friends, and what I kind of calculated out for like a reasonable MVP, like a 3 to 6 month MVP, would be that it ends up costing like less than 30K, somewhere around like 17 to like I think my calculations end up like somewhere between like 17 to like 24K, with like some amount of equity given up, somewhere between 1 to 5%. So I think the differentiator really is that A, you get to connect with industry developers, and B, you get to do some sort of trade-off where you give a little bit of equity and instead of paying like an extra like 60K.
Got it. No, that makes good sense. I see you thought about this. It's very good. So on your end, then, what's your model? Like, are you also taking equity, or are you getting some sort of upfront fee, or just a finder's fee? How does that work?
Yeah. So what I do is I do a little bit of talking with the founder, a little bit of consultation to kind of figure out like, what do they want to build? Is this something that I even can help with, right? That's one of the first things I want to know is like, if you're going to build something that's like super, super complex or like super out of my like realm, like if you're talking about crypto, blockchain, look, I love crypto. I love blockchain. I just bought into Bitcoin, but I don't know shit about that space. So, that's not something that I can actually help with. But if it's something like, you're like, I want to build this site where people can trade their auto tools. I'm like, yes, this is something I can help with. And so I kind of like talk to the founders first, and then I'm like, okay, I like give them some sort of quote. And I'm like, all right, so this is how much it's going to cost to work with me for 3 months upfront. So it's like an upfront fee to work with me for the 3 months. It's like a 3-month contract. After the 3-month contract, it's like this. It works like if you as the founder, so I give founders like a little bit of homework just to like make sure that like if I'm going to continue working with you after 3 months, I would like to continue working with you for another like 9 months at least. So I kind of want to work with people who have like this demonstrated like I've demonstrated that I can make this happen. I can make the sales. I can make the customer things. Because personally, my weakness is I don't know about sales and marketing. That's not that's just not what I was trained in. I don't know a lot about it. I would love to learn more about it, but I just don't know a lot about it. So if I'm going to continue working with them, I would like, then I give like a different retainer fee for the 9 months. And then generally I take like a 1% 1% of equity that vests over the 9 months. And like obviously like equity vesting over time is kind of like what you would like to see with your developers too. You don't want to just give them 2% immediately, right? You want to be like, work with them for 6 months and we'll give you, like the 1% at the end of the 6 months. And then if you work with us for another 6 months, you get the other 1%, something like that.
Got it. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So really seems like then if we look at the target market here between the two competitive forces that you talked about, it seems like it's people who they care a lot about the quality or whatever, but they're still pretty price motivated. So
Right.
founders who don't, they can recognize what's worth their money, but they might not be too far along. I mean, have you worked with many people so far with your business? Like
So I've only worked with let's see, let me just count this out. So I'm working with Leif right now. I'm working with this company called Cohart right now. I'm working with Bueller right now. And I was working with this company called Mend Health. And that's it actually. So it's just 4. I'm interviewing a 5th person right now. So that's, I've only worked with 4 people. I'm interviewing a 5th person. It seems like I don't really know. Like I'm obviously also pretty new to this space. I just know about software development.
All right. Well, I think I've actually taken up a ton of time here, and there's like 4 questions. So I'll just say I run a marketing agency, boutique in Seattle, and there's my email in the chat. Hit me up. We'll keep this consultation going. Sounds good?
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Cool. Take care.
Sweet. Caleb, you're next, sir.
Eugene, always great to hear you, man. And
thank you.
You're why I'm here today. Actually, I got a ton of stuff, so I wanted to hear what
honored.
you're up to. And I wish you had called me, man, because had I known you're up to this, I'm working on some similar stuff. And I love the path that Nick was going down, because I think from our time at Founder Institute, the question I'm going to ask is who's paying, right? How are you going to make money on this? And just do you really have a kind of a line on how you're going to put it on the table?
Do I have a line on like? Yeah. So how am I going to get paid on this, right? Yeah. Yeah. So I work with the founders. So I have I get paid by the founders to do this. I do not get paid by the techies.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So thinking about that then is I'm thinking about founders that have money, right? And these founders are generally, these are going to be people that are in side hustle mode, or they're going to have raised money, right? If they're in raised money mode, then they're going to have advisors already pairing them up, right? You may or may not be able to get into that gig. I don't know. So where I would go for that thing are some of, back to your accelerator Slack groups, but for all the graduates that are churning over, that are still in those communities, the alums. So I'm looking at the venture deals Slack. I have no idea how in there, but there's a specific channel looking for a co-founder. And generally they're always looking for technical co-founders. I don't know if they're funded or not though. Subreddits, so I think is where I'd be hunting fintech, prop tech, insurtech, real estate tech, and looking for the side hustle guys, right? The guys that are day job, so they have some they have some cash they could float out to you to at least get the concept going. Because I'd be really aware of and qualified right up front that first conversation. How much money do you got? Because you're to come to me, I'd say, I'll pay you with equity because I don't want to part with my precious cash. Whereas if you'd asked me 2 years ago when I'm starting out on buying this company, I might say, yeah, I'll throw down, right? So it's a matter of when are we cash heavy? I do have a guy that operates in this space. So let's connect afterwards. Let's just catch up base and I'll introduce you over to him. He does a temp CTO type offering. And lastly, what comes to mind here is looking at the book in a box type model. The guys that do the authoring, the ghostwriting. This is very similar. I've got this concept of this thing I'd like to have created. I don't know how to create it. Will you help me create it? And so these guys will write the book for you or whatever, right? That's what you're doing, right? They say, I got this concept, I got this app, this project, whatever. I don't know how to create it. Will you help me create it?
Yeah.
And those book in the box guys, they take down 15 to 30,000 bucks is what I've gotten as far as an estimate. So I'd really look at that business model, who's doing it well, and say, I'm going to do that in the software space to get rolling.
Okay,
So
I definitely have to look at
those
this
are quick
book in the
thoughts.
box model.
Yeah, I kept my notes. Let's catch up, man. And
Yeah, dude.
we can go through in more detail.
Yeah, let's catch up, man. It's been a while.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Outstanding. Cool. Caleb.
That was Caleb.
Oh, that was Caleb. Sorry, I didn't lower his
I
hand.
can go again,
Casey.
but-
It's Casey.
Hey, starts with a C.
Hello, Casey.
That's right.
Hey, so where are you at as far as like your exploration of customers? Have you done some one-on-one interviews with people on this or done surveys?
I mostly just do like one-on-one interviews. So most of my like I don't know. There's some sort of like difference between inbound, outbound marketing. I don't really know what the difference is. Most of like the people that I end up like interviewing or talking with, I actually find on Reddit. I'm in the entrepreneur subreddit or something like that, startup subreddit. I'm in both of them. And then often what I'll see is I'll see someone post on there about like, hey, I need some technical guidance, or I need a CTO, or I need some technical help. And I just like reach out and I'm like, hey, look, I run this business, I do this, like, do you want to talk? And then that's basically all I've done in terms of customer exploration, just kind of like talking to people about what they're building, and just seeing whether or not I can actually help in that space.
Okay, I was just asking. So a couple of thoughts I had is one is seems like the type of networking group like this is right now,
right,
is a great place to find who I'm hearing would be your ideal customer. Or also like here in Salt Lake, we have a midday network connect meeting, which is once a week. It's a little more, 1 million cups is not for like advertising and all that. The midday network connect is a little more in that direction. It's a little more in the networking and business connection
midday
type of
network
meeting.
connect. Okay.
And I can post that link in the chat here.
Please do.
That's every Tuesday. So maybe those kind of groups where, you can surf the country right now. It's great. I've went to 1 million cups in New York and St. Louis and Texas and Colorado. It's been great. I've actually met a lot of really good people that I didn't have access to before. So that's been nice. And then also I personally know two girls that were doing startups. They're doing app development, and they've both been through the same pain of their dev team started to perform less and less as time went on, to the point where they cut it and started over. And I know that was a huge pain for them. And if that is part of your ideal customer, which it sounds like it might be, the old thing of like, you got to gut punch somebody to get your marketing message across, is by talking to them, you might find out what's that real pain point that you could kind of bring up and say, hey, don't have this happen. We can stop that from happening because we have this expertise, so you don't have to go through that pain. And I know that like at hindsight, if you can introduce that hindsight of, you don't want to go through this pain, so it's worth paying me up front to take care of that, because that's what I do. And I think that's your key selling point to get this to really move with the people that are there. That's my thoughts on it, being around in the entrepreneur world for a couple of years now.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Casey.
Thanks.
Yeah, Casey, you're right. Tell some war stories, right? Tell the war stories and get people to know. So, my my thought, I'm next here. So I'm going to take 1 second to unhand myself, but not letting me. Anyways, when you started talking about your book and reaching out to people, I can tell you that when I started to look at this idea of going from professorship teaching to a world of entrepreneurship, I spent a lot of time reading on like Medium. Okay, it's just a platform that I have. And you could take your book and you can decompress that book into small chunks, 10 articles, and put them up there. The best part is you can put yourself on their paywall and make a few bucks. Because so they'll actually pay you. It's a tiny bit. If you have a good article, you can make a couple $100 here, $1,000 here if it goes really well. But they will start pushing good stuff. And they've got actual magazines that would fit, that you can just toss in your things and just kind of break it up into 5, 10 articles. And don't give the whole book away, but give pieces of the book, and then it drives sales to your book as well, and to your website and to your business. So it does all those things at once. That was my thought after hearing you discuss your book. So with that said, we're going to go on. The next person with a question is Ryan.
Okay.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Cool. Awesome. Hey, great presentation here, Eugen. I want to know if you told, like, you know, if you added more to your book or a video or whatever to dump all the information you possibly know about this, could people reproduce what you do? Like if you wrote everything down, would people be able to replace you by reading that?
Ideally, yes.
Gotcha. Okay, just wondering.
Yeah.
And you know, several other people have already said this. You know, getting the inbound marketing going by kind of giving away tidbits of knowledge there could be a great way to do that. Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to know how you were thinking about that. I'll send you a message here later.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Please do.
All right. Well, Leif, you are next, sir.
I'm around the
again.
buffet for a
Hello.
second, little helping. Hi. So I wanted to fast forward a little bit beyond your marketing. You know, like I said, you're one person. Your thing is like, I want people to work with. You're going to be saturated very quickly
Right.
after you get your marketing out. So do you know like what your list of like no's are? Like these are the people or the types of groups or the whatever like people stage in their business that I'm not working with. Like, do you have a filter? And what is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, actually, I do have a filter. So some of the people that I interviewed so one guy I actually interviewed, he basically came to me and he was like, I want to build this biotech app. I was like, okay, cool. Tell me more about it. And he said, I don't know. I just want to build a biotech app. And I was like, well, you can come back to me in a year and maybe we can work then. So people who kind of like have an idea of what they want to build, first of all, that's super important. Second of all, people who like you have been working on something for like 6 to 12 months or longer. You know, I think that people who have like an idea they've been sitting on for like, 6 to 12 months, they're like really ready. Like you're like really ready to go. You're like, okay, I know I want to build this. I've wanted to build this for so long. I just need a little bit of help. I just need a little bit of a push. I just need someone to help to kind of like help me like get it started. That's kind of where I think I come in best. It's like when someone has like been sitting on an idea for a long time and they've already started working it out and they just need like a little bit of a push, a little bit of a help like on like the technical side to get things started. So like I'm specifically looking for like people who have been like, if it's like if I'm talking to someone and they're like, yeah, I've had this idea for like, like a month or two and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I don't really know if I can help you that much. And also like, I mean, personally, right, like you said, this is not like super scalable. This bottlenecks at me. And so I only work with like a maximum of like 5 people at a time or like 6 people at a time because I can't do much more than that. So one of the things I actually am working on and in order to allow this to kind of expand more is that I'm actually working on getting some of my like more like technical friends who are looking to leave big tech. I'm like, hey, look, I've started doing this thing. If I do end up with like a lot of inbound customers or whatever, then I'll like reach out and be like, hey, look, I'm working on this. Can you take this one person or can you take these like 2 people to kind of work with them?
And if that was the case, would you have like, this is the model that we do, or is it just like they're another competent person and go talk to them?
I don't really know. I was thinking like my thought is personally like, I would be like, okay, the book or, the software engineering, what goes into it. And if they don't, then I'll like talk with them about the book and be like, hey, look, right? Like, I mean, if you're a software engineer in like a big tech company, chances are that you've seen the model. You just probably, like, not everyone breaks it down into discover, design, deliver, but like you've seen like the model where it's like, okay, gather requirements, like come up with the milestones, high level data, high level design, low level design, API, blah, 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 blah. So they probably know like the general model. And then I'm like, okay, so this is the part where I do, all of this part. And then here's like basically the last like 2 or 3 steps. So it's just you come in, you codify the interfaces, and then you write the code. So that's kind of like what I would think with that. But I don't really know. Maybe it would be like, hey, look, here's another competent person. They can help you out. I haven't really thought about that so far. I haven't come across the problem yet. So I have not had to figure it out yet, but thank you for bringing it up, because now I do kind of have to think about it. Yes, I will have to think about it.
You'll deal with that for sure. As someone else that operates in a space that is like, I am the bottleneck, you'll definitely be saying like, I can't take you soon. And you should know where they're going.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, I think that's our last question, because we need to have a few seconds to do some work here. I'm going to share my screen real quick, go to a particular slide here, share that bad boy, and present. So the big question we ask everyone at the end of one of our meetings is, what can the 1 Million Cups community do for you? And you kind of talked about that a little bit with your ask or telling us that you don't know where to go with your marketing. Is there anything else that you feel like we can do for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would love some inbound leads.
Well, I think that places like this are going to be ripe with people who will contact you directly. So the people who said, hey, go to do this presentation with other 1 Million Cups, it's not a bad idea. And there's also meetup groups as well. So consider that. There we go. So there we go. My screen's going crazy. I don't know about you guys, but here we go. So now that we know what we can do for you, what can you do for the 1 Million Cups community? Well, you can bring a friend next week. We would love to have you bring someone, make this community bigger and better and brighter and stronger. So hopefully you can help us out and do that. And
I brought a friend. I brought Rashawn, by the way, so I got a point this week.
Yeah, good job, Rashawn. I didn't get to give you a shout out earlier. Glad to have you on. And Mark was here earlier too. I didn't get to shout out to him as well. But next week we have another entrepreneur coming up, and we really look forward to seeing you then. But if you're just watching and wondering what it's like to be a presenter, go ahead and present, or go ahead and apply to present. You don't have to be ready. You don't have to be close to ready. We just want to hear that you're interested, and then we'll maybe be able to help you get over that hump. And it really is a helpful process. I've really learned by doing my 2 presentations. So something to think about. Also, if you want to get involved and help out the 1 Million Cups community, we are always looking for some help with volunteers. There's 5 of us right now, and we've got things pretty much under control, but boy, we think we could do more if we had even more people helping us out. A couple hours a week, and you could really help this community stay strong and grow strong. That's it. We're going to go into some breakout rooms here for a little bit. There's not a ton of us left, but let's do it. Let's have some fun. And I will get to that right now by exiting here. I'm going to stop the share.